So hello guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Vaishali Gautam, first year MBBS student of Kanti Devi Medical College and Hospital. So in today's video we will discuss about Norma verticalis. So let's start the video. So this is Norma verticalis. So when the skull is viewed from the above, it appears oval. You can see this. It's appear oval when we see the skull from above, or the superior aspect of the skull, it appears to be oval. So let's start which bones form Norma verticalis. First you know this bone. This bone is in the front side, so this bone you can clearly see there is a suture. So this is the bone is frontal bone. There is a bone is frontal bone. And these two bones are parietal bone, and the last bone is this, the posterior bone, or which lie posteriorly, which is occipital bone. You can clearly see the sutures. Sutures divide these bones. So the bones which form Norma verticalis are frontal bone, two parietal bone, or you cannot say two bone because it's a paired bone. So it's a pair of two bone, parietal bone, and this is occipital bone. So this is Norma verticalis. So let's study about in details. So can you see this suture? So the suture which divide the frontal bone and two parietal bones, this suture is known as coronal suture. You can see it clearly. This suture which divide the frontal bone and two parietal bone. The coronal suture divide frontal and two parietal bone. So the first suture is clear, the coronal suture. Then the next suture is this, the suture between two parietal bone. The suture between two parietal bone. The suture between two parietal bone are known as sagittal suture. Sagittal suture. Sagittal suture, or it in the mid plane. When you just divide the skull or divide the body, it's a median plane or mid plane. So this is sagittal suture which divide the two parietal bone. So we clear about the coronal suture. This is sagittal suture. Then the last one, you can see it's from here to this. So this one is the last suture, which is lambdoid suture. Which is lambdoid suture. The lambdoid suture divide occipital bone and two parietal bone. So we clear about three sutures. This is coronal suture, we divide frontal and parietal bone. The sagittal suture or sagittal suture, you can pronounce in any way. So this is that sagittal suture which divide two parietal bone, and this is lambdoid suture which divide occipital and parietal bone. So just we clear about the three suture present on Norma verticalis. So the bones are frontal, parietal bone, occipital bone. The sutures are coronal, sagittal, and lambdoid. Last one, there is some terms. So there is a meeting point. You can see clearly in this. There is a meeting point of this sagittal suture and the coronal suture. So this meeting point of sagittal suture and the coronal suture, this point is known as bregma. Just clear it. The meeting point of sagittal and coronal suture, its point is known as bregma. This point is known as bregma. And the same here, the meeting point of sagittal and lambdoid suture. The meeting point of sagittal or lambdoid suture is known as lambda. So this meeting point is known as lambda, which is a meeting point of lambdoid and sagittal suture. So we have two meeting points. One meeting point of sagittal and coronal, which is known as bregma. You can see it. Then at posterior there is a meeting point of lambdoid suture and sagittal suture, which is known as lambda. So we clear about 2 points. So there is a foramen of 2 to 4 centimeter away from the lambda or above from the lambda, there is a two foramen on parietal bone. Remember, there is a two foramen which is 2 to 4 centimeter at front of the lambda. When this point is known as lambda. So 2 to 4 centimeter front of the lambda on parietal bone, there is a two foramen. This one, there is a two foramen. These two foramen are known as parietal foramen. What is known as parietal foramen? So at the front of the lambda, or 2-4 centimeter front of the lambda, there is a two foramen on the parietal bone, which is parietal foramen. And this is brachma. This is two parietal foramen. This is lambda. But always remember, there is one more point on sagittal suture. Only sagittal suture. So there is a center point of two parietal foramen on sagittal suture. There is a point. This point on sagittal suture between two parietal foramen are known as oblion. So this is a medial point of two parietal foramen on sagittal suture. So this is known as oblion. So I hope you just clear about the terms, the sutures, and the meeting point and the bones which form Norma verticalis. So let's revise it. So the bones which form Norma verticalis are frontal bone, parietal bone, a pair of parietal bone, occipital bone, then sutures. One suture is coronal suture, sagittal suture, and rhomboid suture. So there is a meeting point. The meeting point of coronal suture and sagittal suture is brachma. There is another meeting point posteriorly. The meeting point of rhomboid suture and sagittal suture is lambda. And you know, in front of the, or 2-4 centimeter front of the lambda, there is a two foramen on parietal bone. These two foramen are known as parietal foramen. Parietal foramen, and between this parietal foramen on the sagittal suture, between this parietal foramen on this sagittal suture, there is a point which is known as oblion. So I hope you understand the Norma verticalis. So there is some extra information about Norma verticalis. So there is also one suture which is known as myotopic suture. The suture in the frontal. I just draw it on the skull. The suture on the frontal bone is known as myotopic suture. Now you're just thinking that how can a suture on a frontal bone? So let me tell you. So the frontal bone have two halves in the fetal skull. When we see a fetal skull, the frontal bone have two halves. The frontal bone have two halves, and if there is two things and which is joined with something, there is a suture between them. So in the fetal skull, there is a suture which is known as myotopic suture. So there is a two frontal bone in the fetal skull. Or you are just thinking that why there is two frontal bone in the fetal. So the reason of being two frontal bone in fetal skull is that they have separate center of ossification. Though the frontal bones, the two frontal bones which is present in the fetal skull have two different center of ossification. So if two bones are joined, so there must be a suture which is known as myotopic suture. But when this suture occasionally present in the median plane of the frontal bone in adults, if this suture are present in the adult, so there is only 3 to 8% cases in the world which is the presence of myotopic suture. In our adult skull, these sutures fuse So there you can see there is only one frontal bone, but there is a myotopic suture in the fetal skull because there is two frontal bone, and the two frontal bone is because they have two different of ossification. So now this is an extra information about myotopic suture in fetal skull. I hope you understand Norma verticalis. So in our next video, we will talk about Norma occipitalis. So that's it for today, guys. See you in the next video. And please do subscribe, like, share, and comment. Thank you.